This is an example of a pretty easy uh, property research compilation. It's a recorded subdivision lot that's surrounded by other subdivision lots. So in principle, it's the easiest that it will get. But it's a great place to start, and it's how we will introduce the basic concepts of how we gather the data, which we've covered uh, previously, with how we compile it. So this is not a lot of text. This is a lot of screenshots for explanation purposes. So let's just say that you're not given a title commitment, you're not given a copy of a deed. You are told by a prospective client or by your employer, survey 161 Lake Somerset Crest, Marietta. And that's all you know. So that's all you really need to know. So what do? We have two options in Cobb County. We have the QPublic Tax Assessor platform, and we have the Cobb County GIS Property Viewer website. So the most common in the state of Georgia, widely used and probably easier to use, is the QPublic platform. So we're going to start with that. So you would just chime up through say a Google search if you don't have it saved, QPublic Cobb County Assessor. You do a search up here in the search bar. When it comes up, you'll have to go through a disclaimer that says that you acknowledge this is not legal data, etc. Key in the address, and this is what pops up. So we see the current owner's names, and by the way, this is a totally random piece of property. There's no connection to any current or past survey project that I've been involved with, and we do not mean to intrude on anyone's privacy. Everything we're looking at is purely public information that's just out there for us to look at. So this is an actual piece of property because it's hard to make up hypotheticals. So here we see the parcel number, current owner's names, and the address of the property. Again, tax assessor's main purpose is to derive values for the tax digest. So right there, value, that's very important to them. So this is where it plots. These are the parcel numbers of the adjacent owners. This is the adjacent street name. This is the street name and the subdivision behind it. And all these things can be toggled over here in the layer list. So seems pretty straightforward. It looks like we've got an adjoiner to the south, an adjoiner to the north, and one adjoiner to the west. The way the tax maps are drawn, we come in totally within this parcel back here behind us. The other option that I was telling you about is you go to the Cobb County GIS page, and they'll show you they have district lookups, neighborhood applications, zoning analysis, zoning, Cobb County water system, but the one that we would be most concerned with would be here the property viewer, the parcel viewer. So if you were to click on that and then run a search up here in the upper left corner, you'd be looking at the whole county to begin with. You enter the address, and a very similar view pops up. Now on the other Cobb County view, I had turned off aerial photography, but the line work is in much the same way. And you'll see here too, you see the parcel number, the owner name, the physical address, and the mailing address. It should be different. And there's a link to the Cobb County's assessor's site link. That's a hyperlink within the metadata box that pops up for this address. And that page looks like this, whether if you click report in the QPublic map or the Cobb County Assessor page link from the Cobb GIS page. This is what it looks like when it pops up at the top. You've got these various options. You can go back to see what the map looks like. It's all about value, so you can look at the sales, you can do a sales list, sales report, you can look at imagery, you can look at the home, You can see when there are visits scheduled to go look at it. There are undeliverable notices about the property. Again, the tax assessor is not a survey office. It's not a survey data clearinghouse. We just happen to have a few things in common that are very useful for us. And you'll see it jumps right in here. Here's their value right below. To them, the most important thing right below the owner is the value. And then below it, you'll see it goes into the assessed values. At the bottom of that page is the sales information. And this is part of what they use in creating their data. Ironically, the current owners over here are the grantees of the last transaction, which makes sense, as we know. And the sale date was in 2022. They go ahead and list the sales price. This is all value and sales data driven. Keep that in mind. What we're concerned with and interested in is the deed book and page of this last conveyance. We hope that's as far as we have to go. We don't know, but the deed book and page of the last conveyance. Now, I'm going to choose Cobb County for our examples because that's where both campuses of the university are located, because they have both GIS and QPublic, but they also have one thing that makes it really easy. They have a hyperlink for the recording info. So any of these deed books and pages, you can merely click right here on the click here, and you will have this pop up. This is the PDF of the deed for this property. You can see here are the current owners' names. Up here are the previous owners' names. These are the grantors. These are the grantees. And the legal description is see Exhibit A. So again, when you click that hyperlink, it bypasses all of the search mechanisms in the Cobb County's Clerk of Superior Court's own hosted website. This did not come through GSCCCCA, but the same data could be found. You could take that deed book, which was referenced 16064, page 4431, go over to GSCCCCA, go search by book and page, enter that book and page, and this same image will pop up. This was taken from the Cobb Clerk page. This is the first page of the subject properties deed. And I'm including the second page just because if you've not done this before, you'll realize there's nothing of any survey or value on the first two pages. One we're looking for is Exhibit A, the legal description. This has all of the info that we need. Primarily this top part right up here. So, tells us that we're lying in land lot 315, 20th District, 2nd Section, Cobb County, Georgia, being lot 19, Block B of Lake Somerset Subdivision, Unit 3. Main thing we're looking for is lot and block, lot 19, Block B, and that we're on Plat Book 69, pages 17 and 18. Now, it's a nice touch here. They say for informational purposes only, said property is known as 161 Lake Somerset Crest, and that is the address that we've been asked to survey, so that's a good confirmation that we're looking at the right property. Now that we're going to be compiling data and gathering it, we have to know what we're gathering before we can compile it. This goes back to the QPublic page, which I have printed without the aerials. This is just plain. This is just how it comes off. And it typically will show the subject property highlighted by this blue box. And this is the same thing with my handwritten notes. So for organizational purposes, I call it Jane Doe, our client. Job number 4465-7-1. However your firm organizes job numbers is fine. But you can see all I've done is just wrote down the last name. Say, for example, here our rear joiner, I've wrote down the last name of our rear joiner and their deed book and page. I hit the hyperlink and see that it calls for lot 3, block C, Plat Book 94, page 79. Now, here's the first thing that we're going to notice that's great, that it's not just textbook super duper. This happens a lot. Now, so here I wrote down Samika and Beavers, 16064 4431, and as we just saw, it calls for lot 19, block B, plat book 69, pages 17 and 18. I went up here, here's the same information for our northern adjoiner. Notice it calls for a different plat book and page. There's been a re-recording. When that happens, you have to analyze to make sure that our lots did not change. We don't know what they revised from one time to the next. Maybe it was to change a drainage easement. Maybe it was to add some as-built detention pond data. We don't know, but it got re-recorded. And so even though they look the same, they're not legally the same document. So we have to look at both to make sure. Now we come down here to the Hunter's website, or to the Hunter's assessor page, and there is no deed reference. There is no sales data listed. So this presents a fairly frequent problem. We're not relieved from checking the adjacent owner simply because the tax assessor's valuation data does not give us a deed book and page. We can use the name that they've given us as a head start. And it says that it is the Dean and Marcia Hunter Trust. Now, deeds are filed by last name. I recommend that everybody just looks at last names. Don't put Fred Beavers, Jim Farley, or Susan Reed. Go by Reed. Here, I did write the first names because in order to find that book and page, we're going to have to dig a little deeper. We're going to have to go into the clerk's office. So Hunter is the last name, but we're also going to need to know that it's Dean and Marcia. And that's going to, point us in the right direction, hopefully. So here's what the bottom of their page does. Here's qualified sales, 0, sales data, 0, there's nothing. Here's what their house looks like. But all we know is the house was built in 1978 and that Beavers is listed as the current owner, but no sales data. So what do? We go to the Clerk of Superior Court's website. Again, you can use the GSCCCA. I'm using the Cobb because it's free. That way, all the research that you're required to do in this class can be done free of charge through open source websites. No subscriptions or fees or image costs are involved. So here you see what the Cobb County Clerk of Superior Court Real Property Records page looks like. And there are many options. You can search by name, book and page. You can narrow it by the instrument type. You can search by land description, which is a last resort. There's also cross references, street names, and there's a CFN that has to do with filing that you can search by. So there are a lot of tools here because the Clerk of Superior Court is not in the valuation business. They don't care about valuation. They care about finding and retrieving and preserving legal documents that have been recorded, such as deeds. So we're going to select name because that's all we've got right now is the name. At least that's the easiest. We do have some of this other information, but the deeper we have to drill, the harder it's going to be, and the more false returns we're going to have to look through to see if they actually apply to us. First, though, besides looking for Dean, we have those references to those plat books. Now, the plat books are not hyperlinked, it's just the deed books because the assessors are just interested in getting sales data. And on the front page of the deed, you've got the amount of transfer tax paid inside the recording stamp. And that means that that's $1 on every 1,000. So if there's $385 paid on the recording stamp of the deed, which the assessors carry, $385 in transfer tax means the property sold for $385,000. But we know that this is the process to find the plat for our subject property, which per our deed is in Plat Book 69, page 17. So we go there, we hit enter, and then this is what the page will look like. In this case, in Cobb Counties, they really only list a grantee because there's no grantor. There's really no grantee. They just had to pick a file to list the name of the data by. And here we are, Lake Somerset. Yeah, that is the name of the plat. And we're in land lot 315 of the 20th district. That's good. It was filed in 1977. The record type is a PT, which is plat record in Cobb County's system. And the green highlighted one is what we asked for, 6917. Now they go ahead and give us a whole page full of results, which goes into 18, 19, 20, and so forth. So you come over here, and this middle image right here, this middle box, that is the one for the image. When you click that, this is what you're looking at. And yes, it is turned sideways. This is exactly how the image comes up when you retrieve it, because this is how it was glued into the book in 1977. This is how it was scanned when it went into the database. Most important thing to realize when you're looking at any kind of recorded plat in person or otherwise is the north arrow. That way you can get oriented. So we zoom in, there is no block A shown on this, only block B, so we're in the right place. That's important because even though it's not very common anymore, you might have lots 1 through 20 on one side of the road and block B. The other side of the road may be lots 1 through 12 and block A. So you might have two different lot 10s, lot 19s. They're going to be distinguished by block A and block B, or block F, or whatever that may be. But this is the plat image the way it comes up. Now we're going to go back to try to find Hunter Dean and click the name search option. And so, or Dean Hunter. So we're just going to start with Dean Hunter, see what we come up with. We might come up with pages and pages to sift through, but in this case we got lucky and there's only one. So Cyrus Dean Hunter Jr., which is legally how that's going to be sorted out, granted to the Dean Hunter Trust in Lake Somerset in land lot 315, lot 18, which makes sense because we're lot 19, lot 20 is to the north of us, lot 18 is to the south of us. They even let us know that it's in block B. The magic sauce, plat book or deed book 15671, page 1867. And this is what happens when we view the image. Here it is, bingo, happy, happy. We write the information down. It's lot 18, block B, plat book 78, page 198, which is the third different recording that we see for our subdivision, which these multiple recordings and deed citations are not that unusual. So let's go back to this. This is our like you might say, the front page of our field pack. This is where we've wrote down all the information. Going back to kind of discern this, here's plat book 69, column 4 and lot 20, page 58. Page 17 is ours. Dean Hunter's calls for plat book 78, page 198. And Reed calls for plat book 94, page 79. So what we would have done through this process is retrieve every one of these plat books, save it, copy it if you were in person, or photograph it or scan it, and then you have all the information ready to compile. So this is us. This is an enlargement of our lot. And we'll go through the data that came about deriving this, but this is basically what I would call the secret sauce. This is the crew instructions. Now, this is all part of the field pack. That cover page that's a tax map print off shows all the adjacent owners. That's necessary in case somebody comes out and they say, I'm Mrs. Jones, I live next door. You say, we're showing Dean is living next door. She might say, yeah, that's my daughter. Or she might say, well, I'm renting from the Deans. Or she may say, no, the Dean's on over here, and you're in the wrong place. So knowing the adjacent owners is always good. If you see somebody out and you're having a hard time finding a corner, or they're looking at you suspiciously, you may want to wave your hand and say, excuse me, are you Mr. Reed? You know, if you're in the backyard, that's our rear joiner. They might say, yeah, how did you know that? Well, I'm a surveyor. We've pulled public data on all the adjacent properties, and I just want to let you know we're surveying the Samika property over here at 161 Lake Somerset Crest. That's what we're doing back here. They can go a long way. Otherwise, they might call law enforcement thinking you're a trespasser or snooping or somehow up to no good. So this page is the crew instructions. This is where you're going to have focus on your subject property. So here is our subject property, lot 19, block B. Here are dimensions. Notice, yeah, there are no bearings on the sidelines, but the way they did it when this was all drawn by hand is probably this bearing right here is going to be duplicated until it changes, which is the case if you look at the whole plat. We do have bearings and distances on the back and front property line, which is nice. I'll give you a little spoiler alert. The 2 pages of our recording were the first page, the northern page. The southern part of the subdivision is the second page. There are actually 3 anomalies with this example. The second one is that Dean's or Hunter's property, that deed book, that plat book and page 78-198 is the southern part of the property of the subdivision. It only goes up to lot 16 and stops. You know, it's down here. It's not up here. So they have a legal problem in a way, in that their deed calls for lot 18, block B on plat book 78, page 198, when that plat does not show lot 18. We know what their intent was, and that creates a legal problem that if we were surveying their property, that might need to be addressed according to how the closed attorney wants to address it. I did look, and the first page was not re-recorded at that time. It's not in page 197 or page 199. They merely recorded the second page of the subdivision, and for whatever reason used that in their deed, but it does not show lot 18. So anyway, when we looked at plat book 78, page 198, we got the rest of that, and we'll get over to that in just a minute. But they've got references down to the landlocked corner, which is a good monument for establishing where you are and understanding if we are in congruency or commonality with the adjacent properties. So they show lot 16 and 15 going down to the landlocked corner with distances of 107.52 and 106.01. This is very basic, but this is where we're putting together our predetermined analysis. We're taking a look, and we come up with right here 422.55 feet from the landlocked corner. That would be like our point of beginning if we were drafting a long legal description, not a lot and block or a plat reference legal like is in place for this lot. But if they wanted a meets and bounds description of this lot, we would say beginning at a point on the west line of land lot 315, blah, 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 which lies 422.55 feet north of the southwest corner of the said land lot. Then we're going to go north 103.01, this bearing up here, and then southeast, because that's the reciprocal of northwest, 89.59.35, 195.14 feet to the west right away of Lake Somerset Crest, then south, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, this would be the legal point of beginning. And we're probably going to start on the front, but this is not a large enough job to where we have to get into that, order or chronology of our research. We can just survey and keep going. So anyway, we have to relate our survey to the plat, to the subdivision back to make sure that we're not having any gores or overlaps with them. So we notice like I said, our southwest corner is 422.15 from the landlocked corner. Now, if you remember our tax map, it shows that we back into lot 3 and that we only join lot 3. Well, when we look at this plat book 94 back here behind us, we find that the southeast corner of lot 3 is 404.99 feet from the landlocked corner, because we have these dimensions for these other 3 tracts on it. So yeah, we're 404.99. Over here we're 422.15. So we're going to tell the crew that they need to come down here and look 17.56 feet below us, south of our southwest corner, for this lot 3 corner, because we want to make sure that lot 3's boundary and our lot 19's boundary are lining up and that there's not a gore or an overlap. Lot 3's dimension is 115 feet on the back. Well, shocker, we come up that we actually, the tax map is not drawn right. Some people may want to jump off of buildings. Some people may want to argue with us. But the cold, hard legal fact is that we actually joined lot 4 by 5.57 feet back here on the back. So don't always trust that tax map to be right. It's not. This is the third little anomaly or common issue that we run into that we need to talk about. So yes, we actually joined lot 4 for 5.57 feet. So when we're out here surveying, these are instructions for the crew. Locate the pins on the rear adjacent lots. Now I've abbreviated it in my own shorthand. You can do it however. I'll often create a Word doc and either upload it to a crew's cloud account or I'll print it off and make it part of the field pack. It just depends. But in other words, we need to nail down the lots on this subdivision behind us to know whether we have an overlap or not. If we don't do that, we don't have a clue. On paper, we don't. I'll show you that in a minute. On paper, we don't have an overlap or a gore. It matches up perfectly and there's no inclination or any reason to suspect that there is any deviation on that rear line. However, we have to confirm that. So tie the landlocked corner. How else do we know where we're at? Well, we could come up here and if we find these pins and everything checks out and we check these other lots, which the last thing I say, locate pins, one lot in each direction. That is standard procedure for us. That is sound surveying. If you don't do that, it's not impossible that somebody came along and drove 4 pins the right distances from each other, but in the wrong place. We're out here surveying property. We're not merely measuring distance between rebars like engineers and GIS analysts do. We're trying to locate property lines, people. So we need to come up here 102.3 and 102.31 across the back and 104 down in both directions. And if we don't find one, we go 105. We want to make sure, we want to analyze this little block, this little part of the block, at least these 3 lots and the rear corners of these lots behind us to make sure that everything fits together. That is our predetermined legal analysis, is that this is what it should look like. 422.55 feet from the landlocked corner, we should find a pin that lies 17.56 feet north of this lot corner. Going up our back line 103 feet, we should find a pin 5.57 feet south of it. We should be 195.14 out to the road, where we should find a pin that's 102.3 from our other joiner's other front corner, and then come down our distance 103 to a pin that should be 104 from this one, or maybe 209 from this one, and this is what we're looking for. So in essence, this is almost all that you need to give the crew. This is our plat. I've zoomed in on our area, shows our lot 19. This is without any notations. I've merely highlighted our lot and wrote the plat book and page. This is the one for the lot to the north. So I've started it with a pink highlighter. That's lot 20's plat. Do check, but these distances are all the same. I don't know where the revision was that triggered the re-recording, but it did not change our lot lines. That has to be checked every time. This is the plat book 78, page 98 that lot 18 calls for. Notice that lot 19 is up here. Lot 18, for that matter, is up here. This only goes up to 16. So, this is where we got the distances down to the landlocked corner. And you may say, that don't say it's a landlocked corner. Well, the landlots change, the line bends, and he calls for an oak stump. So we're going to tell him to go look for an oak stump and hope that somebody's drove a pin in it since then, so we have a more permanent monument than an oak stump in 1977. You might call this the 4th anomaly or common issue, in that we're going to look for what was an oak stump 1977. But this is the other half, or the southernmost half of the plat. And this is the plat behind us. Notice that it shows everything's hunky-dory. It does not give us a description for this landlocked corner, but it's clear that this is the landlocked line. Now, if we looked at the whole rest of the plat, that would be more evident. This is just a portion of it. I did bring up that here, the north line of this lot 26 is indicated on our plat over here in Lake Somerset as being the landlocked line. Yet on this plat, they're showing the landlocked line coming up here where the right-of-way of this new road intersects the east line, the north-south landlocked line. So I don't know what's going on there. It doesn't really pertain to us. We could have went to the northern landlot line and backed into it, but if we had, this would have been an issue that we would have come up with and said, maybe we just don't deal with that. We don't create problems that don't exist. Let's come down here to this landlocked corner and make sure that we're good coming up this way, which is what we did. So this is how compiling all that data comes together. I like to use a yellow highlighter for the subject property. I like to use a pink highlighter for things that need to be pointed out, or the things that we want to have located. And these are helpful if somebody, if crew was coming back here to lot 3, for some reason they would know that they needed to come up this Waller circle and get in this cul-de-sac and walk back here to our corner. But this lays out how everything is situated, and this is how a simple platted subdivision that abuts nothing but platted subdivision lots. This is a simple property research compilation exercise. The tools that we used are applicable to any piece of property. And in our next example, we will study a more of a larger meets and bounds tract that's not within a platted subdivision. Thank you.